Thanks so much, listeners, for joining us. Today's program is in advance of the regular Elko County Commission meeting that opens at 1:30 today. And in studio, we have the chairman of the Elko County Commission, Delmo Andreozzi, joins us today. Delmo, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Lori. It's always so good to see you and to be here with you. And for our listeners, I know I got to apologize to you virtually the last time I missed a show here. I had a little bit of an illness, and anyway, I just want to make sure that, and I always try to do what I say I'm going to do, and I left you at the altar here all by yourself. And
you were okay. You were flat on your back, sick in the couch.
I was very sick. Yeah.
We heard you at the meeting as you dialed in, and it didn't sound good. So thank you for apologizing. Not necessary. We know, and things do come up. I know today being a snow day, a lot of people are still digging out. They're slow, and we all just got to be good neighbors.
That's right.
Yes.
I think. That is so true that you say that. I think at the end of everything, even in government service or whatever we're doing, it's just like being a good neighbor, right? Like I can remember in the days of being with the city, and we have a landfill right next to a neighborhood, and it was always my goal to just there's lots of trees planted there, and just trying to be a good neighbor, and I think that goes a long ways in a lot of things that we do if we just remember to do that.
Well, our landfill is an award-winning landfill. If people didn't know there was such a thing, and I know you had a lot to do with that. Obviously, predecessors and people who have come after you alike, and our landfill is something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
Here in the city of Elko.
And it's one of those. People don't think about these things, and it's so essential to being able to live the lifestyle that we have. Nobody thinks about turning on your faucet and just water magically appears there, or flushing the toilet, and there's a lot behind that. Public Works 101. So anytime anybody wants to talk about that with me, I'm more than happy to have a discussion.
What I love most about Public Works 101 is that it's supposed to be, and really currently is, nonpartisan. So as long as we can keep it that way, and we're not starting to charge more or less for people's political affiliations, that would be awesome.
Well, no, it should be that would be my position, is that if you have a fee or a charge, it should be applied equally across the board.
Delmo Andreozzi is our guest, and we will launch into the county commission agenda. Again, the meeting starts at 1:30 today. And I think there's some really exciting things on the agenda. I know that there's interest in folks being reappointed to or appointed to the Elko County Library Board, and that doesn't always happen, Delmo.
No, we do have a lot of volunteer boards, and again, this is a great opportunity for me to just extend my appreciation to, there are boards you can get involved as much or as little as you want as a citizen. And I encourage people to do that, but sometimes it's very difficult to find people that want to serve in these positions, but it's a great public service and gives me an opportunity to thank people that have served in lots of different capacities. And I'm glad to see that we have we have 2 vacancies and we have 3 applicants. So that's always a little bit tougher, but it's a great problem to have.
Yes, and again, if you are interested in any of the volunteer positions that Commissioner Andreozzi describes, visit elkocountynv.net, and you can drill down and find, because there are all kinds of boards like the Equalization Board. That's also on the agenda today, and you only have 1 application for that one. Whew.
Yeah, this is an individual he's a long time, his family, they've been here a long time. He's a CPA. I think this is a great pickup for the Equalization Board. Al Plank, it's, I think he was here many years ago and went on to the state Equalization Board and coming back, this again is kind of talking about, that civic service that we all should have. Some volunteers, there are so many opportunities, whether it's a board or at the senior center or wherever your passion is. There's just so many opportunities for people to give back and get involved, and that's part of our civic responsibility.
Also on the agenda today, you get to introduce the new Elko County Comptroller.
Yes, and we do have Mary Kane is joining us from Eide Bailey. I've known Mary for several years. She does the audit stuff, and so she's going. Government finance, and Lori, and most of the listeners know I've been in just about every sector of government you can imagine. And government finance, for me, is one of the most complicated pieces of government. So so it's very difficult to find good, qualified people that understand the nuances of government finance, because it is nothing like other types of finance. All the different taxes and funds and regulations and all of that stuff. So it's good that we can find someone that's qualified that can fill that, because as you recall, we had quite a challenge filling it the last time, and also gives me opportunity to thank Susan for her service to Elko County. I first met Susan when she was the comptroller for the ECBA, and we needed someone, so we stole her at the county, and she's been a great comptroller for the county. For me, I'm a very visual person, so I ask her for graphs, and she can just pop me. Numbers can be overwhelming. It just looks like a bunch of numbers. So graphs are great for me, and she's been able to engineer a lot of graphs that kind of help me see the bigger picture. And she's going to really be missed. But I want to wish her well, and that's what we're all working towards at some point in time, is an opportunity to retire and hopefully go on to greener pastures.
That's right. Spending more time with family if you have that opportunity. So Mary Kane is the new comptroller.
Yes.
And yep, that's done. And then best wishes to Susan Paprocki, who is retiring, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess I should just point out that while this position works closely with the county commission, it's not a county commission appointment. So this individual is hired and by the county manager. So it's not a direct position of the.
She doesn't have to report to you.
She doesn't report to us, but there's a lot of collaboration, obviously, as you know, between that position, all our departments, and building the budgets and managing the budgets and all of that stuff. So this really is, a formal introduction. I'm sorry, to the commission, and an opportunity for us to maybe ask her some questions or get an idea about her background, and then off to the races we go. We're almost into budget season again already.
All right. Speaking of off to the races, talking with our county commission chair, this is Delmo Andreozzi. Today's meeting starts at 1:30. You can visit in person or online, elkocountynv.net. Also exciting, a presentation on the Boys and Girls Clubs of Elko. Calling in an event center. We know that we're still all anxious to know what the name of it will be. Sports and Event Center is the way that Rusty Barr is referring to it. I guess the confusion is, Delmo, and we've seen that come up in public, is that we have an E-Center or an event center with the Elko Convention and Visitors Authority. So
yeah, and I think that we got to go back a little bit in time. There was a discussion about this concept that got flushed forward. It was kind of happening conjunctively with the city of Elko, with the rec center and the event center, and that was just what it was called at the time. And it was kind of all lumped into one project, and I said, I'd really want to have this as two distinct projects, because we're involved with one and not the other. And so I thought it was important to have that distinction. And with the E-Center renaming, that's new and emerging. I don't believe it's anybody's intent to create that confusion. I just think it's here now until we get going. There's just not another good name to call it and articulate what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to do. So there's still a lot of work ahead of us on that particular thing, but it's not intended to be confusing, but it is, because that's what it started out as. It was called the Event Center when we first entered into this contract a few years ago.
What we do know about it, contained in the presentation, again, very exciting proposal and project. Actually, it's more than a proposal, because it is underway. I think they are bringing, Rusty Barr's bringing some schematics to the county commission meeting today. This is a 61,584 square foot center with 5,588 seating capacity. It's to be located on some city-donated land in the vicinity of Kittredge Canyon, which I was trying to explain to someone. It's out past the National Weather Service office in that area. There's some sparse housing, I think, in that area, Delmo. It's largely a rural type area right now.
Yeah, I'm probably, if anybody's familiar with where DMV and the underpass is, that kind of gets you in the neighborhood. It's out there by the weather station, but it's adjacent to the bus barn. You remember the bus barn? Elko County acquired some BLM land for the placement of the bus barn. Gosh, it's been probably, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago or whatever it is. So just out in that general vicinity, and you don't get everything you want going through the process. For me, that wasn't necessarily my number one spot location, but I like I said, you don't win them all, and so far that's kind of where we're headed. But there's still a lot of things that we have to go through even before they break ground, because they have to raise the additional capital to do that.
They do have a great start with $15 million from Elko County, and so again, that's why the presentation will be made today. It is proposed as a new sports and event center with a capacity to serve youth and adult sports, as well as entertainment, trade shows, boys and girls club youth programs, equestrian events, and special events. So I think Rusty's going to outline most of that. Now, the center is also touted as having a huge economic impact on the community as an economic game changer. And so that will be presented during this afternoon's meeting as well. And I think, Delmo, it's pretty safe to say it's an update, but there already is support for this on the county commission, in the community. It's going forward.
Well, it's just like any decision you make. They're never 100%. Not even necessarily are they all unanimous. But several years ago when we entered into this agreement with Boys and Girls Club, again, just as a quick reminder, we had some money that came to us through the ARPA funds that we just put into the ending fund balance we didn't use, and it was the commission's kind of intent or their desire to take those funds and create something that creates a community benefit that's really something that is good for the community and can help continue to grow that economic piece. So, that's really the overarching goal from the commission. When the commission, and it was at that time it was a unanimous decision. We've got new board members on from when that happened, but at that time it was a unanimous decision. And that's all detailed and outlined. And again, like some of the things that I thought was really important. I thought it was really important that we didn't commingle that with the recreation. There are two distinct, separate projects, and so there's been a lot of work, and they've been working on the recreation center. And now that rec center is all but done, except for maybe a punch list item and maybe some other issues that they may have to address, they can now swing their focus to this event center and work on the fundraising. So just a recap. The county did gave them $15 million for this project. They do have some obligations that they have to meet. Number one, we allowed them to expend up to $1 million for design work, but they can't spend any other money until they raise the funds necessary to do the work. And let me just point that out, because you and I were talking about this, Lori, but I'm just going to point this out to you right here. If you can see that on phase one, these are just estimates, but you can see that the phase one total construction cost is $23 million. Phase two is $1.8 million. I'm just rounding these off. And phase three is $3.486 million for a total of $28 million estimated. And then here's the so they've got a lot of funding that they still need to get, but this is basically what you see is these are the current funding. You have Elko County at $15 million, the investments at $3 million. That's basically the interest from the money that's sitting in there. That's what they anticipate that they'll have by the time they get to groundbreaking. And then they need the $5 million in total donations to be able to do all of this work. So they've got a tentative timeline, and who knows how that will work. But one of the things that I think about, and I think that's important, and again, I've had this conversation a number of times, even with just like we have a lot of needs in the county too, right? So, and there's no question about that. So, had a number of conversations with, some county folks, and we are building a fund with that part of that pay-as-you-go that we absorbed. So we are building a fund for capital needs, which we never had the ability to do in the past. And I just reassure them that the overall goal, we know that there are needs, but the overall goal this was money that we didn't anticipate having, what we're trying to do is improve the quality of life for Elko County. And if we can create more economic opportunity for local businesses, then I think that's good. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I know that there was a lot of concern about competing, and I wouldn't want to do that too. Why in the world would we want to build something that would compete with something that we already have? So, we've got that built in there. It's not the intent to compete with any of the things like, say, for example, the convention center has. It's a standalone, and this is about bringing different types of events, different types of opportunities here. And so there's still a long ways to go. There's it'll be a while. I'll be off the board by the time this thing gets moving, for sure. And you can see in this presentation, I know nobody else has this opportunity, but you can click on the link on our website on the agenda, and you can look at this floor plan and see the size of it. And if you as you stroll through this, I can tell you, Lori, and I apologize for our listeners if they can't see this, there's a red star that's on each one of these slides. So like this slide here says food and drinks, and it shows the star. So it shows where that is and the merchandise booth, so that you have a corresponding red star. It kind of shows you helps you see the layout of this facility. So it's a very large facility, 60 some odd thousand square feet. It's a big facility.
Talking with our commission chairman, Delmo Andreozzi. Again, the presentation is online, so you can go and look at all these documents that Delmo's referring to, elkocountynv.net. Just drill down to today's county commission meeting, and you'll find all the attachments. And again, thanks in advance to the Boys and Girls Clubs, because it does make it easier for the community and for us to even have these conversations about, what will be discussed today. I think under governance, it is important to note that this gift, as you said, is received by the Boys and Girls Clubs. They are a 501c3, and they will be the owners and operators of this center, just as they are the Nevada Gold Mines Aquatic and Recreation Center. So the one thing that has been brought up is that there are private interest in the community that do try to offer entertainment. They do, sell goods and services that may be related to this type of activity, but property and sales use taxes. And do the Boys and Girls Clubs pay taxes being? I'm pretty sure that they don't. But I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know, like if they have, let's say for example, if they do, like liquor, I assume they have to pay property tax or pay taxes on that. Whether or not they have to pay sales tax or property tax, I'm not sure. I'd need to look into that one. I'm not positive. Well, and there is, as we talked about already, there is a lot of support, a lot of people excited about having a facility like this that could bring in top-level rodeos, horse events, team roping, equestrian events, and there are no other indoor arena spaces in Elko County that could meet the seating capacity or the amenities to properly operate large events. And I know that there's a slide here in which Rusty, during Government Affairs Committee a week ago Monday, I know I asked about the prospect of, why not a business impact statement, because we do hear the concerns, Delmo, from the community, and we're just trying to pass those along. What will happen to the Elko County Fairgrounds, for example? How will another event center impact the East Center, the Elko High School Performing Arts Building, for example, even smaller venues like the Spring Creek Horse Palace, where they talked about during that same meeting, bringing back concerts and having equestrian events too. So you can see where the conversation goes.
Sure. And I would just say this, and I'm not the person that's in charge, but the intent is that it complements, not competes with,
and that's
right?
built into a contract that you
Yes. I mean, we have sideboards built into that. I mean, again, I don't know if we already have a facility providing something. I just don't think it makes good fiscal sense to build something else that provides the same service, right? I mean, we need to expand that pie, really, which is what the intent in it. And I would say, I know for certain if the county owned it, which is an option, if we built it and owned it, they wouldn't be subject to taxes either in that scenario either. So, I not knowing exactly if the Boys and Girls Club are subject to property taxes or sales taxes, I'm guessing not, but I don't know. But for certain, the county or the city would not be subject to property taxes.
Well, Delmo, thanks. Again, there are many different slides. Rusty Barr, who is the director of Boys and Girls Clubs of Northeastern Nevada. Again, they have a huge footprint here. There are questions or concerns about what it might do to existing events or fundraising, but he's prepared to address all that during this afternoon's meeting. And that's what's most important, again, is that the public get a chance to weigh in on that, to better understand, because as you said, if we have an arena, a major event center like this, we could attract tourism from throughout the Western United States. And that's the goal. And then to get more tourism here and to get more people staying in hotels and motels.
Well, and for me, I think there's even one other thing, and I kind of alluded to it, and it's this quality of life piece. I've been involved in scenarios where we're trying to attract professional people here, like physicians, right? This is a tough place to attract people to, right? Because they get here and they go, what do I do? And, it's easy for you and I and many of our listeners. Well, there's lots to do here, But,
and we like the fairgrounds, but they may not.
But if you're not from here, you don't know that we have 11 million acres of ground that you can go exploring and hiking and, that's not so obvious. So, I think that, and I know I saw you there, but like when I went into that recreation center, I don't mean this in a bad way, but I don't think the city could have built that facility, right? So you've taken that public dollar and you've matched it with a lot of private investment. And when I was in there, because I remember the old pool, not the one that they just vacated. I remember the one before that.
The outdoor one?
The outdoor one in the middle of the park, right? And it's always just been, a pool. And I remember that pool. It served its purpose. It did a great job. But I never would have dreamed in all of my life that we would have that kind of center there if it was, if the city, let's say, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, I just don't mean that way, if they would have done it on their own, because I don't think if they said, hey, we want to build a pool, will you give us $10 million? I just don't think that would have, maybe it would have, I don't know. But when I go in there, I almost feel like I'm somewhere else, and that's that piece that's not tangible, that quality of life stuff that when we start to get people here, they see that, we do have lots of amenities here besides just the great outdoors.
I think you really hit on something, Delmo, and I'm sure that that'll be the theme that will carry us through and bring us together as a community, because there are people in Elko that do have attachments to places that maybe they help to build. They're all volunteers. They don't have any paid staff. So, the Igloo might be a good example of that. They just don't want to see those things, those institutions that they help to create, that they need to continuously fundraise for, harmed in the process.
Yeah, right? and those are very legitimate concerns. And I think when I helped draft the agreement, that really was the intent. There were no sideboards in there with the first draft of the agreement. And I said, wait a minute, we need to make sure that that we articulate that there's this, because I don't think there's the intent to do that. And I got that one. That was one I won. I won several on that one. Location maybe I didn't get, but I got lots of things. And really, I think the better written the document is, especially over time, you see it's easier to interpret and understand what the intent was instead of having it so vague. So I think it's important that we do that so that when I'm long gone or whoever else is long gone, they can look back and understand what the intent is.
Absolutely. And going forward, because this project is going forward, I think the more, and we've overused the word transparent, but having this presentation will help. I think it will help involve the community and they can feel confident in asking those questions.
Absolutely.
Delmo. Sure.
And I would say, this is that, it seems like, because we just had a presentation a while ago and here we didn't have these schematic drawings, so I think we're going to start seeing some more regular updates. So I would expect that there's going to be tons of opportunities for people to participate in, observe, watch you in person or online or whatever your cup of tea is. It wasn't the number one priority until after, obviously, they got the recreation center done, and I think now they can move on to this next project. And there's still a lot of fundraising they got to do. So.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do. But again, the more people are involved, I think that will help. Thank you, Delmo, for walking us through that. That'll be a presentation. All the documents that we were just talking about, they're online, elkocountynv.net. And anyone who's interested in the topic, you can dial into those documents. You can be there in person. You can watch online. But again, it's just the first of many. It does say it's for possible action, but
yeah, I don't envision anything. I think it's just there just in case. I mean, I can't envision any type of action other than it just being a presentation, really.
So right next to this on the agenda is a presentation from the Spring Creek Booster Club. I know you were talking about needs. The county has needs. There's another agenda item on here we're going to talk about. The Booster Club were going to request or have requested $200,000 for their capital campaign, and they want to improve athletic and fitness facilities. It just so happens Elko High Warrior Field has embarked on a similar campaign for fundraising. Yeah,
so I know that this particular one, this Spring Creek Booster Club, that request has been withdrawn, so that's not before us. But it's again a great opportunity to say what they're trying to accomplish out there. There's a very optimistic project that they're trying to accomplish here in Elko as well, surrounding the track. And I think one of the things that that maybe people might be aware or think it's the case, but I have a different opinion. And I think that needs to be ferreted out. But if you raise some funds, like money that you remember in that AB 119 bill, there was that $50 million that was set aside.
Matching for rural schools.
Matching for rural schools that you could, they would match donated money. But the way I interpret that and the way the counties interpreted that is that was very specific to projects that are on tribal lands, not the other school districts. So they're not the way I understand it, so again, that's our opinion. So, that might be a bigger hurdle than they think of just getting like half the funds necessary and then getting that match. They, gonna need to look into that a little bit more. And, I've had, it's been interesting for me because I remember a show not that long ago where John and I were in here with you, and I didn't even know that the Elko track was an issue, but I understand it has been for quite a while, and
yeah, they can't have meets.
Apparently, they can't have meets, and I think that they're, for me, I'm just going to say for me again, when we did the pay-as-you-go, and I would just say that Elko County never, ever, ever had a capital fund ever until pay-as-you-go went away, and everybody remembers that we took 50 cents of that. We had 6 cents going to our WFPP, which is our wildland fire protection. We had 2 cents going for our Air Alliance, and we also have a few cents going towards our ambulance so that we could provide that service out in Spring Creek. So it's subsidized a little bit. And I think that the ambulance will always need to be subsidized, because it's very costly to run. The equipment's expensive. having 24-hour personnel those things are expensive. So we had that 40 cents, and then this whole bill. I don't need to go over it, but we were actually said that you need to take a penny. If you don't do a penny, then we're going to come in and. But we always knew. I think it was. We never intended on keeping it the whole time. So we gave 20 cents back to the school district. That generates $5 million a year. I don't know what, their priorities are with that funding, but, I was surprised, I guess I would say, that I never saw that unless I missed it. I could have missed it, but I never even saw the track mentioned on any of those capital lists. So I don't know how that happened or how that works, but I think it needs to be identified as a priority and then decide how to make it. I personally don't feel that that's given the things that we have to we've got a crowded jail. We've got, if you've been in the judicial, we need to do something. Our library is old. We are still functioning out of the old ambulance barn we have a lot of capital needs.
And that is a barn.
Yeah,
yes.
And it's been like that for 50 years. I don't even remember. You lived across it.
Exactly.
You remember.
Yep.
So, but my point is there's a lot of needs, and I think it's important for us to stay in our lane and do our things. Support, if we can support people, but I don't think it's our financial responsibility to do that, given the fact that we've already committed 20 cents, which generates $5 million a year.
All right. And that's, of course, Delmo talking about the presentation, which will not be held today on the Spartan Booster Club. They are looking for donations for their project to enhance athletic facilities at Spring Creek High School. So, as you said, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things. We won't spend time on this show because we got to get you downtown for the meeting that starts at 1:30. But what we were just talking about, Delmo, segues perfectly into something else on the agenda, and that is to possibly approve professional services from architects to study the renovation of the existing courthouse.
Yeah.
Now, I know this one probably makes you feel badly because as long as you've been on the commission, this has been an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one, you remember we went down that whole route of the Judicial Center. That's really
we bought property on Idaho Street.
And this really is kind of taking a step back. Look at what are our real needs? How can we? And I've said this at it was a commission meeting ago or two. Let's do this incrementally. My whole government career, everything's phased. We do road projects in a phased approach. You can't build it all at once, and I think it's important for us to do an evaluation of what we absolutely have to need. Make sure that it's built in a way that it can be expanded, right? If that's needed. But to clean that area up, it's, that's our property. And I was talking earlier about being a good neighbor, right? So so this is kind of taking that whole thing, taking a step back. What is it that we need? How can we get there? And reevaluating it. So I think it's a good exercise. Again, I wish I was part of the commission when this thing goes forward. I'm more than likely going to miss it, but I think this is the right approach. We need to look at the complex as a whole. We need to understand what our needs are, and then try to get the needs done in a way that sets us up for future growth if we need it. And I would say that I met earlier with the senior center today, and I remember being involved in building the senior center, right? I was involved in that. And who would have ever thought that they would outgrow that facility?
And how do you feel about that land purchase?
Oh, well, I don't want to get into their business. I think it's that, but my point is, I think when we're building these community spaces, we need to be thinking long-term about what is this going to look like in 30 or 40 years? Is it going to be adequate? Can we do a smart design that allows us to add on? They're kind of stuck. They really can't grow the building. And so, I don't necessarily, again, I was talking about staying in my lane. If they feel like that's important to them, I want them to move forward with it. But I think that's just the same as everything else that we try to do. It's important for us to be out in front of the public, out in front of everybody, so that we express the need, so that we build the coalition. And I honestly think we can get so much more done together than everybody being in silos. There's no reason why, even though maybe that doesn't directly, we're not directly involved in, how is there anything that we can do to help? And we write letters of support. Can we help? What is there? Can we help spread the message? Whatever the case may be. Those are the kinds of things, I remember when, when it was at the old clubhouse, right? Remember the old clubhouse on the old golf course? Yeah. And then they were moving over this. You had people like Chuck Knight, like Dick Harris, and those guys were beating the street, and you had this huge partnership between the senior center, the city of Elko, and Elko County to build the facility that we're in today. And so, I think those are keen examples that we can always remember to look back on. And, there's always going to be some concern, and sometimes, we talked about the convention center we talked about that, and we just celebrated our umpteenth year of celebration not long ago. But, there was a lot of criticism when that was being built, right?
You're right.
There was a lot of criticism.
I didn't live here then, but yes.
There was, they really had to sell that to the public, because there's tax rate, there's room tax that goes to support that. It was
a controversy.
It was a controversy, and look at that building now. Look at how that complements what we do. And I probably my very favorite event, and there's lots of them, but I love the Festival of Trees. You go in there, and there's thousands of people that are there in these super creative trees, and our staff works so hard to accommodate that. But I think that's the purpose of the building. I think it's a central gathering place for people to go. Just like the Tuscarora Hall, just like the Jarbidge Hall, just like the Hall in Mountain City. These are gathering places for us.
Delmo, I know I have to send you downtown. What we were just describing is the downtown courthouse planning study. Commissioners are considering spending about $20,000, but again, the goal is to study renovation of the existing courthouse, to look at locations for office buildings, to develop conceptual floor plans for the existing courthouse, the annex building, the bank building, general office building, a site plan, master plan. So when you think about all that, $20,000, and the county's total project cost is $20 million, so that's just a small percentage.
Well, and for me, like I've been saying, we've got $20 million there. I'm ready to go. Let's do something. We know we can't afford the big thing, but let's do something proactive. Like I've talked about, I don't know if you've been downstairs lately. We are holding court downstairs, and we have for a long time. But I think we can do better. You go inside of where our public defender's office is. Those guys are cramped. They're stuffed in there. We are out of room. We need to be we need to be better at providing that space so that we can function. And again, that didn't happen overnight. We've added a district court, we've added a judicial court right here in Elko. Just in the short 10 years or 11 years that I've been on the commission. So things change fast.
They are changing fast. Delmo, thank you for leading us through it. County Commission Chairman Delmo Andreozzi is heading downtown for the meeting. It starts at 1:30. We appreciate your time as always, Commissioner, and your vision and reassuring people in the community that even though change is happening, we can get through it together. As long as we just keep being good neighbors and communicating, right?
Yeah, that's the key. Lori, thank you so much for having me here today. I enjoy being here and talking with you. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, listeners, for joining us.